Hello from the Authors Guild Foundation. My name is Johnny. We're here for Breaking into Writing for TV and Film. Thank you to the Institute of American Indian Arts for collaborating on this panel, specifically IAIA's Creative Writing and MFA program, directed by our moderator today, Deborah Taffa. This is part of our series Business Boot Camps for Writers, where we normally cover topics like getting a literary agent, getting published, but we also cover things about growing your career, monetizing your writing, making a living as a writer. So obviously writing for the screen fits into that. And it's a bit of a dream for a lot of people. Um, uh, and we'll hear about the reality of it from our panel today. Thank you to the National Endowment for the Arts and our donors whose support allows us to produce free educational programming like this to any writer who's interested. The foundation is the charitable arm of the Authors Guild, which is a membership club. You pay dues and you get legal advice like contract reviews and plenty else for it. You can learn more at authorsguild.org. But if you're not a member, just remember to join before you sign a contract in the future and make sure you get our emails so you get invites to things like this. Now, our panelists are multi-talented with tons of experience. I'll introduce them briefly with their screenwriting credits, and you'll get to know them more in their conversation. Bryson Chun is a native Hawaiian screenwriter known for the Disney Plus series Doogie Kame Aloha MD and Moana 2 for Disney Animation. He's also produced award-winning shorts and features. Dezbaa is an actor, screenwriter, director, and indie film producer. She was a staff writer on AMC's Dark Winds, on which she also acted. And I'll note that she has two MFAs, one in screenwriting and one in creative nonfiction. Brian RedCorn co-founded an indigenous comedy troupe called the 1491s and started a ad agency, Buffalo Nickel Creative, before getting an MFA in screenwriting. He's been a writer, story editor, and actor on FX's Reservation Dogs, and he won a Peabody Award for his writing on that. And for the stage, he won an Obie for co-writing the show Between Two Knees with the 1491s. Our moderator is Deborah Jackson Taffa, whose memoir, Whiskey Tender, was a 2024 National Book Award finalist and longlisted for the Carnegie Medal and included on countless top 10 and best of the year lists. She's written and taught widely, and she is the director of the Institute of American Indian Arts, MFA in Creative Writing. Thanks to our audience for being here. You can pop questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those toward the end of the hour. Thanks to the questions you submitted in advance. And now, Deborah, I'll leave it to you. Let's enjoy this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Johnny. We have a very impressive bunch here, and I know people in the audience are wondering how they did it. Aside from going to an MFA program, where can an aspiring screenwriter start? And I mean literally, like learning script format or gaining general knowledge about the business. Why don't we start there?
Who's fielding that?
Okay. Um, I I think the first time that I ever saw a script, and I hate saying the way I started. I mean, I say the way I started because I changed complete careers from like being a geologist to being a screenwriter almost like overnight. It's like the was it Legally Blonde? You think she just wakes up one morning and decides to go to Harvard? I saw a script when I decided to take a class at or I mean when I auditioned really, but to actually like go into formatting and how to create one. I started at Northern Mexico College. It's a college in Espanola, an hour from where I live, or 40 minutes from where I live. And David Lindblom, who is also an IA graduate from the MFA program, um, said, this is the nuts and bolts. This is what a log line is. This is, and just took me step by step through how to create these things that I was auditioning with and creating script. And now that was how I started with screenwriting was with David's class.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm from Hawaii and I'm zooming in from Hawaii now, and there's not a lot of interface for a lot of filmmakers out here with industry. It's pretty tough. And so I think, coming sort of from an indie space of kind of just being a little scrappy and getting together with your friends and trying to make things, I think that was sort of something I was doing when I was in college. And really, I think in lieu of like a formal writing education at the time, I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I mean, I still listen to Script Notes like every week, which is a great screenwriting podcast. And I was reading scripts, like crazy. They're so readily available now that you can find, most movies that you are watching, I try to find them online. Same with TV shows. I'm just like constantly reading and kind of building a toolbox of writing techniques through that. I mean, I think of course we all went to this MFA program together, which was great, but I think, coming into it, I think we all sort of came into it with some kind of self-taught knowledge to some extent, and I think a lot of that is super valuable also.
Um, I used to make stupid videos with my grandparents' video camera with my cousins and my brothers. And as I graduated high school and things like that, during that time period, I think the not seeing any representation in the film industry at all, like really, really affected me in like how I made my decisions. So I got an undergrad in visual communications with an emphasis in graphic design and became a graphic designer. There was work in it. It was an avenue that I could see that allowed me to move back to my reservation, um, and be close to my family and my community. And that was the pathway here. I mean, I didn't really see anybody, um, that I didn't see a pathway to that. And then when I moved back here, I met Sterling Harjo, and within 3 months of meeting Sterling Harjo and telling him this absolutely insane story, he just like wrote what I told him like into the film Barking Waters, and then asked me to perform it. And I'm not an actor either. This is an indie film, so when you're doing indie films, it's just like Bryson said, it's like you and your bros. And I kind of got around it by then, and then a couple of years later, we founded the 1491s, and we kind of were just making internet videos. And that is writing. I don't want to say that it's not writing. It's the practice of filmmaking, and when you're writing, you're making a film, whether you're just one step towards it. And the improvisational part of it is part of that, the loosey goosey nature of making film. Like you have to be able to problem solve, and um, just kind of ragtag it and duct tape it together. And if it's for your own enjoyment and you enjoy that, that's great. Um, while we were in that group, we got commissioned to do this play called Between Two Knees. And Sterling had a lot of writing experience. Migazy has a lot of writing experience. He's also a graduate of the program, and is the one that encouraged me to apply to it. Um, but it was when we got commissioned to play, I thought, well, hey, maybe I can do this for a living. People seem to really like the play. Maybe I should take this more seriously. I'm like, I was kind of discouraged in my educational pursuits previous by all of my teachers concerning my writing. Uh, However, there were other instances in which my writing was showing merit. I won some like Oklahoma journalism awards for some editorial stuff, and I won 2 Oklahoma journalism awards over 2 years, and I had only written 2 articles. And so I thought, okay, maybe I can do this.
That's a pretty good track record. Yeah.
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 Okay, let me try this out. So I talked to Stephen Judd, and he suggested some books, some screenwriting books, and I read through them. And then I was like, okay, let me just try to write a script before. Let me read some scripts like what Bryson's saying. And I went through and I wrote a script. I was like, I finished it, and I was like, okay, that was enjoyable. I think maybe I could invest 2 years into the program. And so I did that. And then upon graduating, uh, Reservation Dogs like happened right at that same time, and I was able to get into the room. I was prepared. I had prepared myself to be qualified enough. I hope.
The timing was right. There wasn't
Timing was good.
luck,
Yeah,
but
and I had a track record with those guys. They knew how productive I was creatively, and I was willing to take off all my clothes for the internet. Like there's things I will do
Dezbaa shaking her.
for the people. This is for the people, Dezbaa.
I
Not
like
for
that
me, it's for the people.
I
Um,
love that you guys have like this element of fun and play that you bring into it. And there's something else that you all have in common. None of you are in Los Angeles or New York. Bryson's in Hawaii, Ryan's in Oklahoma. Dezbaa is in New Mexico. Do you have advice for people who are living in areas that are not what we would consider the film centers of the universe? Do they have to move to LA and New York to kind of tie into the industry?
I would love to take this one because I have strong feelings on it. But
Okay.
nobody should listen to advice from me. I can just tell you what my thoughts are. And that is like, I have watched a lot of colleagues and peers move to those places and nothing happens.
Mhm.
And in my mind, if I went to one of those places, I would just be writing about the place that I'm at now. That's what I wanted to do. And so for me, being able to stay here, this is my home. If that's what I want to do, I learned a long time ago, I can do what I want to do anywhere I want. It
Mhm.
might not be at the scale that I want, it might not be at the prestige level or whatever. But if you are a writer or you're a filmmaker and there's a place that is your home, if you move away from that, that sometimes that can be good, but there is a cost to it. And because I'm able to be here, my kids are able to go to the immersion school. I'm able to participate culturally, like on a week to week, monthly basis, and my kids get to grow up into it. And I didn't have to make a decision that pulled them out of it. And for me, that's bigger than, I mean, I would be fine mowing lawns if I had those things in my life, and I would still write, but I could be a lawnmower man, which is also a movie.
Which is also anybody else?
I would be happy. Yeah.
Oh,
You go ahead.
definitely.
You go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, I totally echo Ryan with that. I'm got lucky, so to speak, when I got hired on to do writing for Dark Winds. John initially wanted us to move to Santa Monica, and then circumstances made it so that we ended up being in a Zoom room. But I remember I'm a massage therapist, still a licensed massage therapist. I was getting off of work when I got an email from AMC Networks that they wanted to set up a Zoom meeting. And so I rushed home. I, picked up my kid, rushed home, and I sat her and I'm like, do not come into this room for the next hour. Like, just unless you're bleeding, you do not enter this room. And then so John said, hey, I said my kid's in the next room, but we're good. We have time to talk. And he's like, oh, you have a kid. And immediately I grew up in Espanola. And Espanola, if you've heard about it in the news, maybe it's not like, quote, the best place for anyone to live, but it's more my hometown. It's where I'm from. And immediately I just said, yeah, I've got a kid. And he's like, well, let's just talk first for a little bit and get to know each other. Because immediately I was on the defensive.
Mhm.
I'm a single parent. And I'm like, who is this guy trying to tell me, oh, you have a kid? I didn't know you have a kid. And I'm like, yeah, I have a kid. Do you have a problem with that? And so I have this tattoo on it's a drawing that my kid did during the pandemic. It was face paint. And I made it permanent with ink. And I always tell myself that if I can't include my kid in my decisions, then it's not going to be to the success for all of us. So after talking to John, he says, I know that this is a huge decision for you. The reason why family is important, he says, this is something that I've learned after years and decades in the industry. I want you to move to Santa Monica and I need you to tell me by tomorrow, and it's going to be starting next week on Monday. This was, I think, Tuesday. And I'm like, okay, I'll get back to you. And I had every reason to say no, but in me, when am I ever going to get this opportunity? And instead of finding all the no's, I said, what if I did say yes? What if I let go of my fear that something bad is going to happen? Like my ex-husband was going to try to take my kid away because I'm like abandoning her, or I'm like, something happens to my parents, whatever it is. And I talked to my kid and I said, hey, kiddo, like this is something that's really important for us, but I'm totally fine. I might miss your birthday. I'm going to be gone for 3 or 4 months, but this is something that can get us on the track to our dreams. I can provide for you. I can have a house for you. I can do all these things if maybe this will work. And she said, do it, mom. That's all I needed. So I told John that I was going to do it. And then it turned out that I got to, like Ryan said, I got to take my kid to school every morning. I got to pick them up after school, after. And so I've learned that if there's anything that's successful specifically for me, it's going to come to me on my terms, and I'm going to be able to thrive. And this is my home. I moved to Santa Fe to bring my kid. I was on the East Coast and we're living here. This is home base. This is where I'm going to be. Because my kid is getting older, yeah, I might think about, going to live out in LA for like a month or two, but Santa Fe is home. This is where I'm at. These are my roots, and I'm going to stay here for forever.
I don't know if you have an answer to that, Bryson, but I am thinking about all of the regionally specific shows that are kind of in an industry trend, right? Reservation Dogs is one. The shows that you're creating that have, I'm thinking of North of North. That's kind of this far Canadian North show or story. I'm thinking even of Sinners, which is, a phenomenal film that is really embedded in the South. Does being regionally specific in where you live help the writing, or? Do you have any
Yeah,
thoughts on that person? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think uh for a long time, I think stories in Hollywood have been told by kind of the same people over and over, and it's something we've all seen historically with our own people's stories. And I think the industry is not perfect, and I think it is far from perfect. And but there are opportunities, I think, for writers like us, I think, to tell stories that we really care about, that are specific to who we are and to the places we come from. And I think there's more of an audience and receptiveness to it now than ever. I mean, I look at both Dark Winds and Reservation Dogs as a big testament to there being an audience for really truly indigenous storytelling. And I'm very grateful to kind of do that for Pacific Island stories. And it's getting better all the time. It's not perfect, but I think the more people that look like us in these rooms, the better.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
People are asking for specific resources. So I think you noted Script Notes, a podcast. Somebody's asking if Final Draft is a good sort of program to use. They're asking about book titles or, sort of resources. Do you guys have anything that you can offer?
I mean, Script Notes is great. Script Notes, really, really like. I mean, it sounds simple saying Script Notes, but there's like 600 or 700 episodes, and like on balance, the volume of information, the volume of good information that's in there, information that I've found not just useful but applicable. Um, there's like theoretical information that I think is like really, really valuable. That is very, very different from almost all of the script reading books that are out there.
Mhm. Or teachers and
Or teachers,
gurus,
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
There's like a way that script writing has been taught, and I haven't read a single script writing book that I thought matched what I thought was happening when I started the writing process itself. Script Notes itself is like the closest thing to that. And then I take the information from Script Notes and I back engineer it into the things that I know about storytelling in my own culture. There are things that are true to my community's way of telling stories that are not going to show up in Script Notes as a result of living here for 46 years.
And where do people find Script Notes, the
Uh,
podcast? Is
you
it
can get on Spotify, and I think you can. There's like a what they have a premium thing that you can get access to. Final Draft is the kind of industry standard um, script writing software. It's
okay?
pretty easy to learn, pretty fast to learn. Um,
And you have to purchase Final Draft, is that correct?
yeah, I would say you know what, those things. I'm gonna sound crazy, and this is not something that it's a professor who's teaching you screenwriting would probably say. the writing process itself is something that you can learn, just as like learning to drive a car or learning to fix a car or whatever. There's a thing to it that has a structure or whatever. I think the more important thing is to actually like go have life experiences and interact with insane, like go talk to your car mechanic, like for like an hour, like get there an hour early and just visit with that guy while he works on your car. And or go just visit. Here I'm afforded the ability to go visit elders and talk to them. And like I think if you're engaged in that type of activity, one, you understand how different people talk. And then when you're going to write, you have their voices in your head. And like when I'm writing, I'm assigning a character to somebody that I know, or it's an amalgamation of people that I know. It's coming from a real place. And that has a real tangible effect on my writing. And it's like when other people read it, they're like, oh, I know, I've met that guy, or I've met that woman, or I've met that old lady. Like those types of experiences, I think are more important. I would say that's number one, learning the structure and the format and the blah 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 blah. Like you can read that, like you can do that with what Bryson is saying. This is how long a slug line needs to be. This is how long model. This is how quick. This is this style. This is action. This is da da da. Like you can learn that just by reading other people's scripts, and you can and you can get that breakdown from script notes. It's been super helpful, but also like immerse yourself in the people that are around you. Find the weirdos. Find the interesting people that are around you. It's so much more interesting and fruitful than the a clinical way, the clinical type of work that may emerge if you just listen to professors and read books on screenwriting.
You know, I visit a lot of high schools too, and I'm always like, it's bad. Like I know teachers are kind of like cringing, but I'm like, you should get in trouble too. You know, like especially when you're young and it like you're not gonna go to jail. I'm like, you should get in trouble because when you're in a writer's room one day, that's the stuff that's gonna like come up and you're gonna put it into an episode of TV. Um, Maybe that's not good advice, but it's I'm echoing what
Get into
Ryan's saying.
mischief.
Yeah, mischief. Maybe that's what it
I
is.
guess you're saying, do you have to have some real life experiences
Yeah,
before you can make a
Yes,
script
yes,
emerge from the page and be
yeah.
for sure.
believable? Yeah,
Mischief, shenanigans, and
Yeah,
tomfoolery.
And that
tomfoolery.
that's what
also
it is.
goes for acting as well. It's kind of the same advice. You know, any of the big, huge top actors, they say the exact same thing. It's life experience that will help you with what you're doing. You can go to film school all you want, but if you're not listening to your surroundings, if you're not listening to your community, you're not, you're not going to be able to then be the vessel to produce that onto the page.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
have to be able to reflect it. You have to be able to reflect the world. And if you're just like chilling in a screenwriting book and listening to podcasts, it that's it's a two-legged stool.
Well, I was going to ask, like, what important qualities must a screenwriter possess to succeed? And some of what you're telling me is observation, living life, being out in the world. Are there common challenges, though, that are faced by screenwriters that you think, create obstacles for them once they're in the television writing room? Because it's a very collaborative experience. What have you learned being in those rooms about what works and what doesn't work?
Well, I mean, in the movie world, people don't want to spend money anymore. I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but there's a little problem going on with the entertainment industry. And maybe you heard, maybe you haven't. Um, the collaborative part of it is absolutely true. I mean, the movie collaborative part is true as well. I think the biggest challenge is not that there are not stories that need to be told. It's that in between an indigenous writer, then it must go through a producer, a
Mm.
director, somebody with a checkbook, then somebody that wants to distribute it. And that curatorial process has historically subjugated comedy specifically. There is like an exaltation of the lamentation of indigenous people, and they just like love to see Indians die or indigenous people die, and not a lot of money being, not a lot of checks being written for Indians laughing or having fun or enjoying or even winning at the end of the film. But those stories exist and they are important. So I would say the biggest challenges are, for me, are sociological. But Reservation Dogs kind of proved that wrong. But even though it proved it wrong, it didn't necessarily like crack it open and suddenly like, oh, I didn't know you could make money that way. There's no rush of money coming into that
The
space.
checkbooks are not coming out.
No, they're not. They're
No.
still, if anything, they're like holding on to it even tighter.
Yeah.
But I think in the TV room, the res dog room was all indigenous people, and that was so beautiful and so wonderful because we didn't have to, what I call Indian splain anything. You could just like trust your audience, which you should do. You should be able to do that. Now, I'm not saying you're allowed to do it, but you should be able to do it. There's, at least from some of the material that I've seen in the streaming world, they seem to expect that you're on your phone the whole time, and that's affecting the way that these producers are giving notes. That's really, really sad and depressing, and I hope to God I'm never in that kind of situation. But
What do you mean by being on their phone? You mean that they're
like they're dumbing
While
down
watching.
they're dumbing down the scripts, and they're repeating the plot like over and over again because people are watching whatever like this, and
oh,
they're kind of just barely paying attention. And I don't know. I don't watch movies like that. Maybe I'm outside of the bell curve now. I want to watch something that's like good enough to hold my attention, not like dumb enough to make me pick up my phone.
Yeah. So questions of like gatekeeping in terms of the authenticity of stories and representation issues in Hollywood. Those are issues that you guys find challenging. Let's hit some of the nuts and bolts of screenwriting that I think some of our audience members are putting into the chat, that are a little bit more about logistical things. So if somebody is writing, are they best to submit or work on treatments? Or is it like a full feature length focus? If they're thinking they want to sell something, are they doing the treatment or the feature script? How does it work when you shop something around? And at what point do people need to start seeking agents or editors? Or agents, I guess they're saying.
I don't, yeah, I've had people ask me about getting an agent. And I just got one through working on the show. Um, but even then, once you have the agent, it's still on you to have like at least two types of writing at the very least. Is one is it's in your voice, it's truly authentically you. If it's a feature, then you need a features agent. If you're a TV writer, then you need to have a TV script. And if it's a comedy, then it has to be a comedy and it's got 30 minutes or 45 minutes or 60-minute show. If it's drama, whatever it is. From what I know, comedy writing is very cliquish and it's hard to get into that actual realm, because everyone just tends to work with each other. But the second type of writing that you really need to have is something that is in the voice of the thing that you want to work on. So one is authentically you, the other one is something, because generally, basically, that's what it is working in a writer's room. You have to, in some ways, regurgitate exactly the same kind of formulaic, either if it's a procedural or whatever it is, it has to be a singular voice. And if it's going to be in a specific style or genre, it has to be that. So if you're good at copying other people's work, and I discourage you from making your living on that, in essence, it's really true. If you can mimic the voice of a specific kind of writing style, and do that, that's what's going to probably get you to be able to be collaborating in a writer's room.
Hmm.
That was the advice that I gave to some of the other IAI students recently at a film festival.
Wow. Do you have anything on that, Bryson? I don't know what they mean by, is it best to submit a treatment
Yeah.
versus feature script? Can you kind of
I
define the two?
yeah, sure. I specifically to that, what's so hard about it is I think if you are a new writer, someone who's like trying to break in, or someone who's maybe not super established or has a lot of credits, you're gonna need like a script. I mean, it's kind of just the way of, again, like echoing what Ryan is saying, is people are very risk averse and they don't want to invest a lot of money in something that doesn't feel very safe or concrete. And I just mean like a treatment or something like that can be a valuable tool. I think if you're farther along in your career, sometimes you can pitch something with a treatment or some kind of a document like a pitch deck or something like that. But yeah, I think in general you're going to want to have the evidence that you can write in this medium and that people can be confident in your ability to write a film. So a feature script will always be a little better than a
Okay,
treatment.
right.
Yeah.
Now you guys all have such built-up resumes already. I mean, you're such an impressive group of writers in that you have things under your belt. In terms of exposure or kind of creating a CV, do you think that screenwriting competitions are worth entering? And what are those, like, what are some of those competitions?
I don't know. I mean, part of my main motivation to get in this in the first place is that I was not seeing the stories that I wanted to see as films.
Mhm.
And I don't think I'm going to see the films that I want to see as films unless I make them. And so, I mean, as an exercise, I if you get good notes out of something like that, then it's worth it. The
Mhm.
like one of the most valuable things is like notes and feedback, even if it's wrong feedback. Just like learning how to distinguish between good and bad notes. Like I don't know how many times I got what you would probably consider like terrible notes, but like if I looked across the notes, maybe all of the terrible notes were all pointing at one thing,
Yes.
and they were all making horrible suggestions, but it did point to a problem that I needed to fix for myself for the script. But like I'm a writer director, so like I I feel like there's a certain level of insanity to the things that I write, and I just don't think that if I wrote a script that somebody else would want to make it. This is I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I'm writing about people that nobody knows about. Right now, they presently don't care about. Um, Not even the white people that I'm surrounded by. Like nobody cares about them either. Like these are forgotten places in the country that are
Flyover country.
yeah, flyover country. Like nobody cares. But I care. I live here and I just don't think that's going to happen. So like the treatment, the the script, I would say just write the script. That gives you a chance of saying like, okay, this is the story that I wanted to make. Like you made a decision. Like and you stuck through it. And it is not a small task to write a feature script. It is a lot of hours. And if you were passionate about it, then maybe once it's done, you get some buddies together and you get some duct tape and baling wire and you go make a movie. And like that's the thing that you wanted to do in the first place when you started writing the script. Like I would say just do that.
Mhm.
And you don't and you don't need I had agents. I don't have them anymore. We parted ways. I
Mhm.
have zero agents. Uh they told me to not do the documentary that I'm working on right now. And
Just a rebel, Ryan.
I have
Because
a
You
he's an
don't
problem.
submit.
Aquarius.
I have an
You don't submit to
I have a
competition.
problem with authority. Um so
Anybody else has anybody else submitted to competitions or
I
tried to kind of level up little by little by getting little fellowships, or are there such things as internships and stuff? Bryson, what do you think? And then Desba after you.
I I am not a believer in competitions.
Okay.
I don't think very many of them carry the weight that people think they do. I'm going to be a little contradictory. I don't think that they're great. They're if you're going to do it, um Austin Film Festival, maybe that's a good one. The Page Awards, maybe. And then like the Nichols, which is like a feature, it's like the Academy does that one. But this year they did something to me very controversial and very negative, is they narrowed the amount of submissions to 2,500, and they have to come from organizations, like they have to come from somebody who's in college, somebody who's in some kind of writers fellowship. So they've really narrowed the window, and it's just saying, hey, writing screenplays is for people that can afford an education or come from a certain background, which to me is, that's me on
I'm
my
out.
soapbox. But yeah, but so I'm not like a fan of contests really. I don't think they do as much as people want them to do. That being said, I am an advocate of, you need to get your script in front of eyes, and if that's like your only way of doing it, like you have nowhere to send it, you don't know what to do, then maybe. But I'm a big advocate of fellowships. I think there are many. You have to kind of cut through the bullshit and see what's meaningful to you and what isn't. But there are so many that are great. Like that's really my pathway into being a writer, was through fellowships. Sundance was a big one for me that like started me on this journey, like 10, 11 years ago or something like that. And then I did a fellowship like, yeah, like 10 years ago with Migazy. That's how like he and I became friends and sort of started that journey. So I think, fellowships are valuable. I think they can be more than contests. That's my opinion. But
Thank you.
yeah, Dezbaa maybe.
Yeah, I agree with Austin Film Festival. I went like in 2019 before the pandemic, and it was the first time I went, and it was amazing. It really is for screenwriters. If you can get to go, I highly encourage it. I can't afford to go to all these different places, but Austin Film Festival was great. And some of the best advice across the board came from an Austin Film Festival. Somebody said, you see all the panelists who are up here, and you want to talk to every single one of them, and they're here giving you their time. But I'm going to tell you right now, the people who you're sitting next to, those are the people you need to be networking. Those are the people you need to be working and collaborating with. Those are your supporters, your friends, your future filmmakers. So, yes and no, script contests could be good. They're good for this. They're good for like, I've done it, I've did it, I'm great, or for the notes. But there's going to be a certain point in time where you're going to be like, okay, I've won a million awards and don't have a single film to come of it. No one's coming knocking on my door. No one's going to come knocking on your door. You might have that luck that someone might be able to say, hey, I saw your script, blacklist, I don't know. But if once you're confident enough and you're like, I need to workshop this scene, or I want to create this scene, find somebody to talk to. The people in the comments, the question here, I see that some of you are answering questions to each other. Those are the people who you're going to be working with. Those are your future friends. Those are the people you're going to collaborate with and get your film made.
Awesome. That's very good advice. How did you guys get your first paid screenwriting gigs? Taking it from the hobby to actually, oh my God, I had a, I'm working. I'm actually working. Would you mind sharing those stories with our listeners and viewers?
Built by Dale, get hate mail. It really was like I explained. John said, "Hey, I saw your stuff," and it was the first script that I ever wrote. It was 11 pages. It was in Dene as well as English. It was about the long walk of the Navajo to Bosque Redondo, and I wrote it for David Lindblom. It's the first script I ever wrote. That was the one that he said spoke to him of the feature that I sent and the TV pilot and other stuff that I had sent him. That one, because it was in my voice. Because he said that I authentically came through in that short little piece. Um, and that was what sealed the deal for him after some vetting and some, whatever happens in the network and behind the scenes with executive producers and so forth, because I didn't have the experience, but I, also the persistence of, like, submitting your work. And I guess it was just the luck of the draw. And I hate saying that, but how many other Navajo screenwriters are there really out there in the world? Um, and I just said, I know I need to be in that room.
You mentioned something called Blacklist. Did you?
Yeah,
What is
yeah.
it?
Isn't that the still in a lot of people still do use Blacklist, right? Bryson, Ryan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
What is it?
yeah.
I put stuff up there before, and that's what I'm saying is like to get notes. I mean, you have to pay like a little thing, and then you get notes for putting a script up and all that kind of stuff. And that stuff was like super useful in the refining process. I've even like hired people off of Fiverr. They have like script coverage people off there. If I'm like, I need notes back on this, I need it fast because I'm like rolling and I've got only a certain amount of time. Like if you're in the if you're in this room, like what Dezbaa is saying, like find the other people in this room, like get a buddy and send like get notes, like exchange notes back and forth, like to be able to reflect it, to see what's working, what's not working. Is this funny? Is this dumb? Is this boring? Did you fall asleep? Did your ADHD like kick in on page 32 and like you completely lost interest and decided to mow your lawn? Like find out those things. And that is like how you sharpen your blade more than anything. And also go make friends with weirdos.
It's a work in progress on your ego too. So, like, you really, if you can't take, don't be harsh with your criticism, but be honest and truthful. But, also too, you have to really, like, lay your ego aside and be like, well, this really needed to be in there. If someone brings in a thought, be like, well, it just didn't really work. I love being in a writer's room because you get to collaborate so well with other people right then and there. And, especially if you got like a little coffee meetup group and you got a couple of you working together and someone says, hey, can I bug you guys for a second? And then we all stop and we're like, yeah. And, like, so, and then they talk to you about, like, what's the problem or what's going on. Do you think I should do this, or do you think I should do this? And, I love that. That's like the best part about writing. I'm much better at that than, like, writing my own stuff. I love helping other people, push through something that's might be challenging in their script and getting to that next scene.
So you can't be prickly about feedback. Bryson, what about your first paying gig? How did it play out for you?
Yeah, it's funny because I did have an agent at the time, and you kind of go out and try to get opportunities, and they send you all over. They call it the water bottle tour, where you kind of go to all these companies and you just sit there and um try to be normal and try to be cool, and you're just like uncomfortably sitting there trying to say someone should hire you. But as these things happen, I think like Desmond said it well, it's like you have to generate your own heat and your own luck. And it was totally like that Doogie room was like the first thing that paid me real money and got me in the union and stuff. Was like I heard about it from a friend, this opportunity, like, hey, they got a second season and they lost a writer, and they're looking for a writer casually. So it's, again, I think echoing what both of them are saying, where it's that the people around you that are like, yes, that network that you've built from people who are your peers are like more valuable than these so-called gatekeepers. Where I had to go to my agent and be like, hey, have you heard that this is happening? They're like, no.
Oh,
And I was like, do you know who to contact here? No. So I had to go do that work and get that job. And they'll still take 10%, so I'll say that
wow,
they
that's
still they still took
Heck
some
yeah,
money
they
there.
will.
You
Good for
But
found
you,
the
though. Good
opportunity
for
by
you.
booking the
I
street.
did.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. But I mean, totally what Desba's saying is like you have these reps here and there. Look, Ryan ditched his reps because they did nothing for him. But yeah, I think it's you have to kind of keep making your own luck, I think.
Yeah. Do you guys think it's easier for someone with a book? They're going to do an adaptation into a screenplay. Do you think that that is a position of strength? People are asking because some people on the call in the Zoom room, they have books and they're thinking about adaptations. Anyone know anything about that?
I could say a little. Oh, sorry. You want to go, Ryan? Or yeah, you
I
go.
would just say one thing. One of the first things that I did when I deviated away from the screenwriting books is that I found the way that books organize themselves in chapters to be much more useful as a tool,
Hmm.
as a structural tool than what was being taught as a screenwriting. And that translated from that worked the same as in feature film writing as well as TV. I found that, and maybe that's a taste thing,
Mhm.
but I when I'm doing my quote unquote treatments or my outlines, I follow something much closer to literary chapter based outlines than I do uh, screenwriting structural stuff. And it feels much more familiar. It actually feels more indigenous, if that makes sense, of how it's contained, and it smooths it out in my brain.
Mhm.
And
And
I think,
did you
yeah,
have a schooling in that before, or it's just from reading books that you kind of?
it's kind of just like I took what was I took what was being told to me in the screenwriting books. I tried to make it work. I kept running into the same problems. Um, and then once you get fluent in it, then you realize, okay, this is a fluid structure. Like I can pull and push and kick stuff out that is not working. And so like trying to understand a screenplay in terms of how I would understand a book was how I ended up there. And I think if you're from that approach, it should make that easier moving. But books are dense and they do other things that with first person,
Mhm.
there's just a lot of things that happen in books that you can translate to film, but you got to do it in like a specific kind of way. And then you really are getting down to the sleekest, slimmest like blueprint of that material.
Mhm.
And a lot of stuff's going on the floor, a lot of stuff's going on the cutting room floor, but you have to study it and like really deeply understand its essence. And then I think it would spring forward.
You're looking for those peak moments that are non-negotiable in the book that tell the.
I don't know if that's yes and no, but like those the I'm going to say this. The screenwriting books are really and the classes, they really harp on like the architecture of it.
Hmm.
And the architecture should be symptomatic of the character. It should not go the other way around.
Hmm.
And if you find yourself doing that adaptation, like, okay, this has to happen, and this has to happen, and this has to happen, and you're losing the symptomatic nature of the character that what made those events emerge organically or emerge kind of on their own, you'll start to lose what makes it good, in my opinion.
I see. I gotcha. Yeah.
I think,
Bryson, oh, go ahead. First you, Dezbaa, and then Bryson.
sorry, it's just what I think I kind of hear what Ryan is saying is like you have to just kind of know so innately what the structure of it is that you don't even think about it anymore. We all know how a house works. You have a front door, you have a bedroom, you have a bathroom, you have a kitchen, you have a back door. If you know how the structure of something is, you're going to be able to create it without having to like think about it all the time, and you're going to have like this is the flow of the way I want it to be. This is the character's arc is still going to be super important. Maybe they're going to spend most of their time in the living room, maybe they're going to spend most of the time in the kitchen, and that's totally fine. book A is going to say everything has to be equally distributed amongst the different sections of the house. And you're like, no, that's not how my character works. They're going to spend their time in the kitchen. So, you have to kind of throw all those things aside. The only thing that structurally that I try to make sure I know is like the who, what, where, when, and how, why, and how, in creating a scene, it's giving all that information. And then do I have all those elements? And is it quick? And is it easy? And then can we move on? And I think writing in the TV room, more than anything, helped me with understanding the flow and organization of kind of moving through the story and arcs and getting to a point in the end.
Bryson, you, the adaptation thing, the book, the
Oh
prose.
yes. I was like, I don't remember what the what the question was, but that is, yes. I I actually think, and it sounds gross, so I'll be gross for a second, is you guys write like are authors and you have books and stuff, and it's like you actually have IP, which is a magical piece of writing that in Hollywood right now is so weirdly valuable to have intellectual property, so something that is like can be adapted. Yeah, you have a little power. If we wrote two equal, or if we're pitching two equal projects that have the same subject matter and come from the same place, but mine is just from my brain and yours is a book you wrote or a short story or a comic book or something, there's value to that. Even if no one read the book, you published it and no one saw it. Just anecdotally, like I was working on a development thing with this other writer who he wrote a short story and it got picked up, and he's like now writing it for Gore Verbinski of all people. And it's funny because I was like, "Oh, where did you publish that short story?" And he's like, "Oh, nowhere." So like it's just a piece of fiction that's like 15 pages long that he his agents or whatever sent around, and now it's IP, but it's not. I mean, no one's ever read it, but it was just having this one document that could be adapted. It gives you a lot of power. So I think speaking to a lot of the people who are listening to this panel, you
Yeah,
have something that is valuable that people want.
he's saying IP is intellectual property is what you're
Yeah.
calling it. Yeah. You guys, when you talk about the individualization of being a screenwriter and a player in the world of film and television, how much are you thinking that you have to kind of be in a niche? Like you are specifically tuning in and specializing to a genre, comedy, drama, horror. Do you have to shape your name around a specialty, or are you looking to be more broad than that? That's another question that people had.
I, I mean, to each their own.
Hmm.
But like I said, I live in a part of the country that nobody cares about, and I don't really want to do. I don't really want to. It's less. It's more important for me to be doing what I want to do than it is for me to bend into another shape on behalf of somebody else to be part of this world professionally. It's just not worth it to me. Now,
Hmm.
maybe other people they have that in them, but and maybe that's a byproduct of my personal life experience of like where I've lived and had to move and the people that I've had positive and negative interactions with.
Hmm.
I just don't have it in me anymore to do that on behalf of somebody else. I just don't. And I don't want to. We're only alive for so long. I want to I want to make sure that the stories that I want to tell to me are so important that they need to be here when I'm gone. And if I spent my time writing for, I don't know, Three's Company, no disrespect to Three's Company. I'm sure the people that wrote on Three's Company have their kids have money and their grandkids have money for the rest of their lives. God bless them. Uh, but I couldn't do it. I don't think I would be adding value to my life or anything like that. It's not going to advance my politics or my anything that I really care deeply about.
Doesn't
So
align with your purpose. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, I wasn't here for that. Somebody else can do it.
Mhm.
Joyce
What-
DeWitt actually lives here in Santa Fe, and I tuned my kid onto Three's Company recently because that was one of the reasons why I wanted to be inside the box, was like watching shows like that on reruns and stuff. I wanted to be the Dukes of Hazzard with the car and running away from the law. I wanted to be that. And I looking back on Three's Company, they're actually pretty progressive. Their writing was
Oh
actually, they
yeah.
were hitting some really hard hitting, you know, two girls and a guy living in the same house and they're not married and all this other stuff. And, you know, they're actually really progressive for their time. And I actually did tell Joyce that. And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize, you know, here I was watching it when I was like a little kid. And but yeah,
They could
it,
reboot it, call it Thruple.
triple, yes. But to that point, I know all of us, we have kids, we've got mouths to feed. We each choose in our own way how we're going to make things work. And I feel like we're all probably in that same space where, like Ryan, um, I'm gonna continue to do the things that make me feel good, that bring me joy, that bring me happiness, that are good to support my community, and that I'm doing this because of my kid. I'm not changing how I'm going to do my life to cater so much, and it's hard when you're in a TV writing room and you're expected to be a certain way or expected to be thinking along the same lines as everybody else. And we're all human first. We're all native, and we all identify, we all have our cultures, but we're all human first. I've had people ask me, you know if I have this Apache person, and they have to do this and they're asking me for advice on how to write a certain scene, I'm like, well, are you does this person have a human motivation for doing the thing that you're doing? And we all do. We all choose our poisons for how we're going to make money or not make money. And I think that's the most valuable thing of like, and it's totally fine if fame and fortune is what you want to do and that's the challenge that you want to do. Go for it. I fully support you. I will help you get there. And then when that loses its interest and you want to change directions, by all means I will support you to do that the same way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we're down and almost out of time. My last question is for Bryson. What about AI and the future
Oh
of
man, what?
Yeah, Bryson, what
Um,
about
What do you
AI?
think about the industry trend of
I
AI?
love it. I love AI. No, you know what? Right now, and I hope for a very long time and maybe forever, I don't think AI can do what people can do. Um, I've tried it. I've been like, try to write some shit, and it can't. I think it sucks, and it's pretty apparent. And when I was working on Moana while the right when the strikes were kind of happening, and it's scary because it's not just us as writers. It's like it's gonna affect so many industries, and being there with artists who are like, to me, the frontline fighters of AI, because AI can make art pretty well. Um, it's a scary thought. I think the only way that we can it's tough. I think, we all went on strike together, which was hard, but it was like a hard stand that we had to take. I think we're still trying to recover from that strike, but like it's a hard stand that we all have to make to not use or support AI. And I try not to use it at all. I hear people that use it as supplementary tools or whatever, and I'm like, why give them anything? I think let's not feed into the machine of AI. I guess
Yeah,
that's what I
those
have.
supercomputers are also really bad for the environment. So
Yeah,
there's
absolutely. I don't see the benefit. And why are they trying to write movies? They should be, I don't know, curing cancer or something.
sure.
Why let us write movies? I don't
Mm,
know.
awesome. Well, thank you all for being with us today. I don't know if Johnny wants to come back on to close out with some words from the Authors Guild.
Yes, thank you all so much. And there's a lot of questions. You all covered so much ground. But know that we review the questions, so if there's any unanswered, we can do another event sometime or follow up some other way. Feel free to get in touch. You can just use the contact form on authorsguild.org, and that'll get to me or whoever it needs to go to. But Deborah Taffa, Bryson Chun, Ryan Redcorn, and Dezbaa, thank you so much. This was a great conversation, and if you didn't see, lots of thanks pouring in from the audience.
Yeah, lots of love for Res Dogs, Moana, and Dark Winds. So you guys are the awesomest.
Absolutely.
Keep it up.
You
Thank you
can
so much for having
contact me too online. So
That's generous.
Excellent.
bye.
Bye.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.